Hey guys, did you see that Trump went on Fox and Friends this morning and he said, we're going to eliminate the Department of Education? He announced it. He's so proud of that. He'll do anything to try and get back Fox viewers after Kamala Harris got 7.1 million viewers and his interview only got 3 million. But anyway, he's very proud of it. This is also part of Project 2025. Here's the thing, it ain't going to happen. In the mid 90s, Newt Gingrich put together this coalition to help Republicans win the House majority for the first time in a generation. One of the things that he promised, what are now Christian nationalists, we just called them the evangelical wing of the party, the family groups back then. He promised them that we would eliminate the Department of Education because this is something these crazy folks have wanted for a long, long time. He had no intention of doing that. How do I know this? I was communications director for the House Education and Workforce Committee at that time. We were the Rhino Committee. This is back when I was a Republican. Remember, I left the GOP the day after they nominated Trump. I didn't think he'd win the general election. No one did, but I was done. Anyway, so back in those days, we had to do this whole thing. So as a communications director, I knew that we were not going to eliminate the Department of Education. It doesn't take a political scientist or a communication strategist genius to know that you cannot have the words eliminate and education in the same sentence together and think that that's going to be fine. So it would have been a public relations disaster. So how do we appease the family groups, the evangelicals, the Christian nationalists? Well, what we did was we decided to look into the entire federal government, all the federal agencies, including obviously the Department of Education, and identify programs that were weak or duplicative or wasteful. And you could do that anywhere. In fact, I think that that's what everybody should do, regardless of which party is in power. I think it'd be great for Democrats to do it. And then there's more money, there's more resources to fund your priorities and work with the other side. Now, this is assuming we have a situation where you can actually work with the other side. I don't think that's the case now on Capitol Hill, but when I was there, obviously we did. We worked with the other side. So we took this whole big long project. It was going to take a year or more. And it was, I think, worthwhile. Again, we should do it for every agency, every every committee on Capitol Hill that is an authorizing committee should do that for those agencies that are within their jurisdiction. But only with the standard of wasteful or duplicative, not just, well, we don't like that, so we're not going to do it. So we did this and we found something like 720 something federal education programs strewn throughout the federal government, because you have some things that are kind of education programs in different cabinet agencies. So we found those and, that was a good starting point. But it really was done to calm down the Christian nationalists and kind of shut them up, because I can tell you unequivocally at that time that Newt Gingrich and the Republican leadership had no intention of shutting down the Department of Education. It is irresponsible for Donald Trump to go on TV and just willy-nilly announce that that's what they're going to do. He has no freaking idea what is involved in that and how many kids and families would be impacted, how it would devastate communities. He has no idea. And you know what? He doesn't care. He does not care about the damage that his words have. To dismantle the Department of Education and leave it completely up to these, family groups in the states, God help us all, because they don't want to teach history. They don't want to teach a lot of things. They want to teach, their version of the Bible, probably the version that, Trump is selling and signing, the ones from China, the Trump Bibles from China. But I can tell you that it would be a huge undertaking. It would be extraordinarily expensive. And you would have a generation of children who would suffer during the so-called transition into sending it back, homeschooling, back to the states, back to the individual communities. I'm sorry, but they're not qualified to do it, which is why we had a Department of Education in the first place. It is to make sure that every child in America has access to an education. And what we should focus on is making sure that public education is the best that it can be, and that our public schools are fit for students to go to school in. And so often that isn't the case. So for Donald Trump to go on Fox News, on Fox and Friends, and say, "Oh yeah, we're going to get rid of the Department of Education," is just ridiculous. It's one thing for some of these crazy Christian nationalist groups to start preaching this stuff, and some congressional candidates, and again, the people that we already know are crazy. It's another thing, even though we know Trump is nuts, Trump is crazy, Trump is evil, Trump is a liar, Trump is incompetent, Trump does not care if he hurts children, he doesn't care if he hurts families. He doesn't care if he hurts education in this country, but he should not be saying this stuff. Now, politically, it could prove to be a problem for him if he becomes president, and he won't do it. But then, hey, we saw that with his first presidency, didn't we? A lot of things that he promised that he couldn't get done, had no intention of getting done. We're still waiting for that wall, aren't we? That was his big signature item. There's no wall. There's no wall. And in fact, in the Biden-Harris administration, there are fewer illegal migrants coming over the border than when Trump was president. So all the way around, he's a failure, but especially on those signature issues that he ran on. Now, his MAGA supporters, the cult, thinks otherwise because they don't really follow actual news and they just believe whatever he tells them. But yeah, there's going to be no elimination of the Department of Education. I can guarantee you that even if Republicans had the House majority and the Senate majority and the White House, that Republicans will not vote to eliminate the Department of Education. Not enough of them to win the day. It simply won't happen. If you don't believe me, just go start talking to people. You want to get rid of the Department of Education? Be like, oh my God, no. Unless they're cultists who like think they know about this stuff because they read all the MAGA propaganda. Most people would understand that it's nuts. What I really find offensive is that in this whole panel on Fox and Friends of like 4 alleged journalists. Yes, I'm laughing. Of course, I'm laughing. We're talking about Fox News. I spent a lot of time at Fox News. I know. We were talking these, nobody said, well, Mr. President, or Mr. Trump, Donald, my man, how are you going to do that? You know, how long would it take? How do you just like take it away from the federal government, just shut the doors at the Department of Education and then what? What's the next step? I would love for someone to ask him that. But they won't, because now we know that Donald Trump won't do any real interviews. He's canceled the local NBC, I think somewhere in Pennsylvania. He's canceled CNBC. He canceled 60 Minutes. I'm even surprised he did Fox News because he's been slamming them for having Democrats on. But again, he knows ratings rule, and Kamala Harris got better ratings than him. So he's got to scramble. You know, he's got to scramble to prove that he's worth it, because the only thing these TV networks care about, especially Fox News, is ratings, and they don't care where they come from. And that's how we got Trump in the first place, because of the ratings. So to talk about eliminating the Department of Education and nobody asks him a single detail is ludicrous. Now, if he ever does a real interview with an actual news outlet instead of Fox News, which is not a news outlet any longer, they need to ask him that. In fact, I think people should shout it from tarmacs. I think it's something that he should be asked every time he's in public. You say you're going to eliminate the Department of Education. Can you give a couple of details on how that's going to happen? How are you going to make sure that it doesn't impact negatively on communities and families and on the kids? And he won't have an answer. He won't have an answer. That's who he is. I wish I could ask him the question, but you know, that ain't going to happen. Anyway, if any of you get a chance, you know what to do. Thanks.